Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
I started experimenting with fatigue. I've been using that at night.
Yep.
I'm obviously still with these guys. Yep. So it's been really interesting to see the comparison. I've been talking to Brandon Marcello a lot about it too. And I've been speaking to not Zielstra, but the Andrew Morton, who's the CEO of Fatigue. And I've probably had 4 calls with him so far.
Oh, okay.
So I've been really trying to dive in and kind of just get a really good understanding of how this works. And what's interesting is they're a technology company. They're like, oh, the watch is just,
Yeah, they're like a data, basically a data company, right? Because they're using the algorithm and they want to, I think, license it to other watch companies. Yeah,
which I think they're going to do their first deal right now with, not Polar. Who the fuck are they doing it with? They're doing it with Garmin.
Garmin, yeah.
So they got their first thing going with Garmin, but I'm trying to talk to them about, just a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, there's some interesting things that it might be useful to you. Like we tried to do it for like PT, physiotherapy clients. And the biggest thing with it is just getting people to wear it and like the compliance piece. Like if you can get them to wear it and then once in a while sync the phone, that's good. So I was telling them like, whatever is easiest to, because you got to open up the app to sync it, right? And I said, is there another way? Because sometimes, at least from our point of view as the physical therapy clinic, I'm like, I just want to see the data, right? I don't need you to know, like, because sometimes people would see their data and they go, oh, I'm such a shitty sleeper. And so they pull the band off and they don't wear it. So there's stuff like that. There's weird human shit going on. So
the weird thing is I've left the phone next to my bed and they said leave it on for 10 minutes, but it's next to your bed. You don't have to. Like I click the app and it just says syncing and it takes like 10 seconds to sync and then all your data pops up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just keep it separate. I just sometimes I don't sync for a couple of days, right? Like okay, well, what are the last 3 days? So.
Oh, really? Oh, see, I never do that. I didn't know that you can do that.
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, it's just how, anxious you are about knowing what you slept like. And after a while, you're like, okay, I've got a good trend going. Seems like I slept about the same. So I just kind of let it go for a couple of days, and then sometimes I go through fits where I check it every day, right?
Right.
Especially when you travel. The traveling, that's where it really kind of, you've become very self-aware. You're like, oh, shit, look at that. Like, I got, when I fly to New York, I fly overnight sometimes and I look at it like, shit, I got 2 hours of sleep, right? So.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the worst. What's really interesting, all of them, both of them I've been using and I've been experimenting with so far. They're actually pretty close in recording the amount of hours slept.
Yep.
So actually, let me grab my phone. I'll read it to you right now because I think this is interesting. So they're both. So I'll go to fatigue first, and fatigue. So fatigue last night said I slept 7 hours and 5 minutes. All right. I was in bed, right? Now it says it recorded my sleep at 9:10 and it got me sleeping till about 5:04. Now I got out of bed at like 5:30. I thought I slept till 5:30, but I evidently didn't. And I think it's absolutely accurate. Now I did get into bed early. I got into bed at like 8:30 and then my daughter woke me up for something. So yeah, I think that's really accurate. What was unusual about last night was the disruption of my fatigue was earlier in the night. So it rated me at like a 6 out of 10, which is okay. I'm trying to do minimum 7 out of 10s. Like I'm trying to work hard at this to where,
I got 9 out of 10.
Yeah. I didn't want to hear you. Move to New York and see how it is.
Yeah, no kidding, eh?
Living in the woods. But
Yeah.
what's weird about this is that every night I've ever had before, this is the first time that after 11:30, I'm not disrupted. Never had that since I've
Okay.
done this. Like, so, and it was unusual because typically I'm never disrupted from like 9 to 12. I was a little disrupted at about between 10 and 11. There was some disruption, and then 11:30 on, it was perfect.
But
But
you don't remember anything about that, eh?
no, if anything, I thought I woke up like earlier, like later in my sleep. Like I thought I woke up at like 3:34, but I didn't. I really woke up at 5. So it was probably like I woke up at 5 and thought it was earlier and then dozed on and off for a half an hour. But so that was that. So it's saying 7 hours and 5 minutes on fatigue. And then on Whoop, it's saying 7 hours and 38 minutes. So that's 30 minutes. That's 30 minutes off. The night before, Whoop was 6:42, and fatigue was 6:05. So hold on.
So is fatigue more sensitive to the movement?
Yeah, I think so. So it seems like fatigue is recording a half hour less sleep. Now on Sunday, fatigue said 6:48, and Whoop said, let's see what it says Sunday. See, Whoop said was almost accurate. So Sunday said 6:48, Whoop said 6:50, which is almost perfect. And then Monday and Tuesday, there was a 30-minute discrepancy, both with fatigue saying less time. I just want to see what Saturday was. Saturday was 7:17 on Whoop, and Saturday was, 6:30 on fatigue. So for some reason, Whoop is saying that I'm sleeping longer than fatigue. And when it says it's either accurate, like to the minute, almost accurate to the minute, or it seems to be 30 minutes off.
Is it on, they're on separate arms?
Yeah.
Maybe one arm wakes up before the other.
Bad joke. You're trying to put bad jokes like my dad. No, I'm serious about this. I'm trying to this. I think this is fascinating because what's happening now is.
But I'm serious. Put them on the same arm. Who knows, right? Like maybe the way you sleep on one side or the other. I don't know. Who knows?
That's actually brilliant. I never thought of that because what I did was I wore Whoop on my left and fatigue on my right for like a month. And then I switched hands. I got to go back and look at what was any different.
Yeah. That's good.
I want to put both on the right tonight.
Yeah, let me know.
See how that is. But you know what's wild about this? Like you and I will do whatever that we have to do to kind of get these numbers better. I mean, your numbers. I mean, my effectiveness level today is 87, which is actually pretty good. Yours is like never worse than 95, which I think that's just.
Sometimes I get down to 93, but
never.
I have a pretty good. 93. I'm pretty good about I have a preparatory program. Like I'll stretch, I'll do certain stretches and.
Ooh, give me what is your routine? I'm writing this down. I want to hear because I'm trying to come up with a pre-bed ritual.
Yeah, it tends to be, honestly, most of the stuff will be hamstring, posterior chain oriented. So like hamstring and calves, because I had talked to a friend before and he thinks the hamstrings are, connected to nervous system function, right? Fight or flight. So the either your biceps in your legs or your biceps in your arms. So I'll stretch biceps in my arms and biceps in my legs, my hamstrings, because he says it's the hamstrings is flight, like you run, and the arms are fight, so you're like grappling or pulling somebody into you, right? So I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty good. So I'm really focused on making sure my hamstrings are stretched out and not too aggressively, and then stretching out just the biceps on each side, and for whatever reason it works. Like if I have, say I wake up and I'm a little stressed out in the middle of the night, I'll just stretch hamstrings, fall right back to bed. Go figure. Yeah. Mess around with that.
What about, I'm wearing blue light blocking glasses. Do you?
I got to get on that. Honestly, I think there's something to that. Like I had this past summer, I've had, I think, well, not New York, but when I went to Montreal, and on the flight, I think I was falling asleep and my neck got irritated. And then I think I have some eye strain stuff too from reading like this. And so the neck and the eyes are so closely connected. But I think sometimes, like when on the computer or on the phone, I can feel like I get this sort of tension headache. So it's my neck or my eyes, but I think it might be the light as well. So I gotta get on that.
Interesting. How about, because the blue light blocking glasses, I put them on and like within 20 minutes, I start dozing off.
Really?
I can literally feel myself relaxing and start drifting. Like I was watching TV with my daughter. The one thing I'm really trying to do now is I'm trying not to watch TV in bed. You know, Brandon, I'm even talking to Brandon, he's like, you should do 2 things in bed, sleep and have sex. And I'm like, I get it.
How about just reading a book? Is that too much?
I think reading I don't see why reading a book, not a tablet, a book would be a bad thing. But I did find when I went up to bed, there was something really nice about walking into a dark room at bedtime where there was no activity. Because I feel like I'm in bed, I'm watching TV. Yeah, even if you're relaxing watching TV or dozing off, I still feel like there's a level of stimulation. And I have to do a better job of like.
Have you done the float tank? I
have.
Yeah. What'd you think of that? Did that have an effect on you?
For my sleep, I don't know. It's funny.
But just being deprived of sensory.
I passed out. I mean, I passed out and I woke up. I've done it probably a dozen times. I mean, I did it years ago when no one really knew what the hell float tanks were. And I remember the one I went into, man, holy Jesus. I mean, this was like an oversized coffin. And I remember there was a sliding door and you go and you lay down, they shut the door, and you lay down, they shut the lights. And I remember I fucking freaked. I mean, I freaked out too.
I did too. I'm like, I can't do this.
I literally, and then I cracked it, and then I cracked the door, and I'm looking out the door, just like it's okay. And then the guy's like, you got to leave the lights off, but there was a dimming light in case I put the dimming light on, and I laid there.
Yeah.
Now I am able to, now they have ones that aren't like coffins anymore. They're like open and they're nice. And it was different. And I got in when I laid down, but I remember even a couple of times I was a little anxious and it was tough. I'm going to try that again. What about do you meditate?
I try. I definitely try. Like I use the apps and all that. And then
what
after
app
a while,
do you use? Use Calm or use like another one?
Yeah, I've tried that one. I've tried the Headspace one.
How's that?
It's not bad. There's like a British guy. He's talking. I guess he lived as a monk for like 8 years, and he came back and he created this app, and he's got kind of a calming voice. But I was actually, when I was in Dallas last year, I was with Brandon Marcello, Winkleman, a couple other people, Brian Dew who used to be with the Celtics, and they're all comparing like, what app do you use, right? And I'm like, and somebody said, I can't stand that guy's voice on that app, right? It just irritates me.
What, Headspace?
The Headspace one, yeah. So I don't know. They had a whole bunch of different suggestions, and then I tried a lot of them, and then after a while, I'm like, it just kind of distracts me, so I just try to do it on my own.
You're also like, you're also at like a score of anywhere from 95 to 100. I don't think you really have an issue with this. I don't know why you have to work on this.
No, so I don't know.
I'll tell you what gets me though. What I'm noticing starts getting me is when I have to wake up early I've got one early client because I'm not training a lot of people anymore, but I got one early client. I got to get up and I got to go through my morning routine. And when I know I have them, I think there's just the anticipation of that wake up, and I think it starts stressing me out. What's weird is I know when I have to wake up early. Like yesterday, I woke up at 4:45 yesterday to 4:30 yesterday to train at 5:30, and my sleep was pretty good, and I was able to sleep for some reason. Like I wasn't anticipating, like the wake up is different. Like I think when you're waking up, like I know when you wake up for a flight or like specific things, you're like anticipating certain.
Yeah. Flights always, I always have shitty sleeps.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just trying to get it to a point where, I mean, even Brandon looked at my numbers. He goes, no, these aren't bad. You're just kind of volatile a little bit. If it was all the time, I'd say it's a problem. Like one day I'm a 9 out of 10 and another day I'm like a 2 out of 10. And I'm just like, all right, like how
can you attach an event to that?
Yeah, I can. I know it's bad. Like there's some nights I'm training home really late at night or later at night and I'm on my phone. And I think I'm just exposed to that light, and I'm just exposed to those emails. But I'm not going to get an hour train ride home and not like work or do something. I'll be bored out of my mind. And I just can't do like it's an efficient time for me to be able to get stuff done. But I know it's like I'm trying now to get to the point where like I'm not leaving my phone next to my bed, which is something even when I was leaving it next to my bed, it was on airplane mode. But it's different. Like I have my alarm set and it's on the table across from my bed.
Yep.
Like, you know, and I just feel like having it over there and having my stuff over there and it not right next to me while I'm sitting there is just enabling me to relax a little bit more. So things like that are really helping me out.
Yeah. Here's another thing. I've kind of shifted my training in the last month or two to probably more aerobic dominant over like I'll do less lifting, even less like short acceleration and sprinting, and it helps. Like it just calms you.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're doing longer runs. I do bike stuff, and for some reason it just brings me down, and in a good way. Like I just feel like I'm calmer. I don't have that same anxiety. So
do you feel like that's because it's more of a recovery form of cardiovascular training where it's removing more waste from your body? Maybe it's just that you're doing it for a longer duration.
I think it's what I found. It's the duration plus having like an elevated heart rate. Like I have to be over 150, 155, like into 160s. And then I feel better. So it's intense, but just from a total, cardio point of view, it's intense. And then it has to be like I have to do at least 15, 20 minutes or more. And then I get the best results. So, I mean, obviously if I go for a walk or I go for a lighter jog or I do something easier, it's not the same, even though there's a circulatory effect. But I guess the fact that your heart is just really intensely involved, maybe that's it. Maybe there is a parasympathetic benefit.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But
I mean, there was a period of time, I mean, I've always been when I say cardiocentric, it's just something I've always done because I just enjoy it. Like you understand, the mental effects from it. I'm not even talking about the physical effects, but it's just something I've always enjoyed. And I remember, I think several months ago, I really backed off of it. And when I say backed off it, I don't mean disregarded it completely, but one day a week, I'd have a 90-minute hockey game and I wasn't really doing much. And I just was like, oh, it was fine. Like I felt fine with it. And then as of recently, I started, and I'm not doing it based off of my HRV because I've tried that. I'm doing it based off of what I'm in the mood to do and how my stress levels are for that week. And I have a hockey game tonight. Last night I got on the step mill. I did some steady state work for 20 minutes, which on the steady state end, I think is really light. Like I think that's not really a big deal, but I'm trying to do things more frequently. I threw in a high intensity day the other day with Tiago Jr., which was like, 6 rounds of sled, like as hard as we can. And then one day we did 15 rounds of air bike, which I would consider more like medium state. You get what I'm saying? And then there's tonight, even though we're playing hockey, you're playing for 90 minutes. It can't be high intensity. I mean, I'd probably categorize it more of medium intensity to steady. I mean, it's probably more medium intensity over that period of time, but you're just freaking drenched. So I just feel, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here, but I've always mixed those, the 3 energy systems into like a slow, steady state, a medium intensity, and a high intensity. Most of us, I want to get your opinion on high intensity. If someone's turning you and saying, I'm doing high intensity training, what do you categorize that from a cardiovascular standpoint, Derek?
I mean, most people seem to think that high intensity training is like an interval based, almost like medium zone glycolytic lactic acid, right? That's what they think high intensity training is. But on the strength and speed end, you could do high intensity training by doing singles or 10-meter sprints. That could be high intensity. And then from an aerobic context, if you're staying at an elevated heart rate, like this guy who broke the 2-hour marathon mark, like what is he running? 425 per mile, 26 times. Like that's pretty high intensity, and he can, so I would have liked to have known what his heart rate was during that.
Yeah, but that's where I'm almost starting to second guess it a little bit. It brings me back to when someone's talking, like I'll never forget at a young age, someone's like, oh, you train heavy all the time. And I'm like, yeah. And you're like, yeah, but you do high reps. I says, yeah, but it's heavy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like if I'm doing 20s or if I'm doing singles, the weight's really heavy. And I understand, I'm not talking about that from a percentage standpoint. I'm talking about it from an intensity standpoint. And when you're looking at someone doing a work to rest ratio, which typically in these classes in New York City, it's like 4-to-1, 5-to-1 work to rest, meaning, you know, for the people listening out there, if they're doing, you know, 30 to 40 seconds of running, you know, they're doing, you know, 10 seconds of rest, you know, whatever. It's just the work to rest ratio is how much work are they doing compared to how much rest. And I would never categorize that as high intensity work, because from a strength and conditioning standpoint, you can't maintain a high level of speed for that period of time. But from a cardiovascular standpoint, I'm looking at people who look like they're about to die and they're about to fall over. So is it where we have to almost draw a line now and say, no. From a strength and conditioning standpoint, you're right. It's not high intensity. But from, you know, a GPP, call it what you want, cardio training class, you know, is it because, you know, is it, wow, that is high intensity. Just like you're saying, if I'm on the treadmill and I'm doing intervals, or if I'm on the track and I'm doing a 400, if you put me on the track right now and you're like, go do a 400 as fast as you can, are you trying to tell me that's medium intensity because I just ran it in 70 seconds?
I mean, from a track and field point of view, yes. But if you ran it in 44 seconds, then that's considered high intensity because your velocity is higher, right? Your average velocity. So
yeah, but why is it about velocity and not about heart rate? Like if the guy who set the world record on the 400, he was that South African guy.
Yeah.
The one who ran. I was watching this the other day. What the hell's his name? He ran in lane 8.
Yeah, Van Niekerk.
Yeah, no one's ever run in lane 8. And he won the last Olympics, right? Didn't he win?
Yep, 43:03, I think.
Yeah, and they were like, I think they said no one's ever won it in lane 8.
Yep.
And they were like, you're the first person ever to win in lane 8. And he was like, I was so scared the time running around, and that I was going to see someone, and I just didn't. I ran harder, and I just didn't see anyone. And when you listen to it, you're like, wow, that's amazing. But was his heart rate running it in 43 seconds, where my heart rate is running it at 70 seconds or 63 seconds, or whatever the hell my time is? Like, if our heart rates are the same, shouldn't that be dictating what intensity is, or is that not the case?
I think you have to, again, it's a distinction between what are we talking about? If it's heart rate, sure. If it's like central nervous system, neural involvement, tissue stress, then those are different conversations. So, you know, I think you just have to, you know, develop these guidelines within each individual and say, like Charlie Francis always said, like high intensity was like, you know, fast sprinting, right? So, or heavy lifting for short durations, or explosive throw or something like that. So he said in a sprinter, they would have 35% of all their work would be high intensity and 65% would be low intensity. So cardio, circuits, whatever, low intensity lifting. So I think everybody's going to have maybe that 35 to 65 split. Maybe if you're a distance runner, it's going to be like 10 and 90 from high to low. But I don't know. It's a very good question. And I think nobody's really defined it well. In the general public, they think high intensity is anything that makes you sweat, feel tired, vomit, right? So the CrossFit high intensity is different than the sprinter track and field high intensity.
I've done CrossFit style workouts, and it's incredibly hard when you're and listen, I don't recommend this for people, but me being in the position I'm in, I feel like you almost have to go through and commit to a program. I remember Charlie Weingroff wrote a program. It was an MMA program, and it was very what's the word I'm looking? There was a lot of variability in the program, and I know I think Friday, or whatever the day 4 or day 5 was, I looked at it. It looked like a CrossFit style workout. It literally started with like 5 Olympic lifting lifts into like 5 kettlebell lifts into like, it was literally 15 lifts in a row. And it was like you get through one round. I got through one round in 16, 17 minutes. You literally were dripping sweat. And I was like, I'm done. Like it was when you're snatching a weight over your head for 20 and then not putting it down, and going into push jerks for 20 and then not putting it down. It was almost like a complex, you know, 4 weeks of that. I felt great. I felt great doing it. When I started exceeding that 4-week mark, I started feeling really weak, but who's to tell me that wasn't high intensity? Because this is where I'm confused. Like, what's high intensity? Is high intensity me pulling 550 off the ground, or is high intensity me going through a complex of 10 movements at 20 reps with no rest? It's like, what am I going to get more tired doing? It's a different type of tired. Afterwards, I'm going to be wiped out from those 10 or 20 movements. But the amount of work it's requiring me to pull that amount of weight off the ground, that's high intensity within itself. I just feel like we got to get some, I just feel like the general public doesn't understand, because none of us really know how to categorize it. And no one does. It does. You could bring anyone into a room right now and we can have a conversation with them. And you and I will end up confusing the shit out of them at this point.
Yeah. Like the marathon example is really interesting, because that guy ran 4:25 per mile 26 times, and you and I could never do that once, right? So, and then they classified it as 466 meters or 426 meters at 17 seconds per 100 meter. Like, most people can't like if we went on the street and said, let's go run 100 meters for average person, they wouldn't run it in 17 seconds.
Yeah, they wouldn't run it under 20.
Yeah. So for him, that's not high intensity because he's doing it 406, but for average person, it could kill them.
Yeah, but I'm curious to see how much further can he push himself. So if he held that at 17 seconds, he's not running it in 10 seconds if he does one. Like, what do you think he's running one in? Like, I just think he's developed
at least 11. I think.
You think?
Yeah. I think so. He's capable. He might not, maybe he's not right now because he's so used to doing the long distance stuff, but he's capable from a potential point of view to run a 10-7, right? Like, because if you go down and you see, like, if that guy's running 4:25 26 times, that means he could probably do one in 3:50, which is, the world record is 3:40 something, right? So if he could do it in 3:50, a mile in 3:50, that means he could probably do 446 seconds. If you can run a 446 seconds, you could run a 200 in under 21 seconds, which means you can run 100 in under 11 seconds. So, this guy is pretty amazing all around. So we don't know why, but there's probably some other reasons there. It's not just the shoes, but yeah.
No, yeah, that's ridiculous. I can't even, I think about my fastest mile time ever. And I think about, that's not even one of his.
No, I know.
It's like, it's not even, and it's off by like a substantial, in college, I ran a 4:52 for 1 mile. I almost died.
Yeah. Which is good.
Which I think, for me, it's good, but that's a joke for some of these other guys. And I would die if I had to run that. Now, I think there is a way, and I think we kind of said it, but I would almost like to split this up into two different categories. I'd almost like to say, all right, well, let's start here. You have your strength and conditioning, high intensity, and then you have your GPP, high intensity. When I say GPP, or maybe we think of another word for it. Maybe it's just, no, it is. It's GPP. It's GPP. So strength and conditioning is about optimization, and GPP is just about,
it's like general fitness, right?
General fitness, right? So I think you have your general fitness high intensity, and you have your strength and conditioning high intensity. Are they the same or are they different? Should they be the same or should they be different? That's my question.
Well, it's interesting because we were talking about a hockey player one time. Can't remember. It might have been Sundin.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, he played for the Leafs, and I guess he was in such good shape that his low intensity would be high intensity for somebody else. So he could stay on the ice and do all these things, but it would gas other people. Like they would get into, create lactic acid, but he was so advanced. So I think sometimes you're trying to get your fitness, you're trying to create reserves, right? Like we're saying, like if your best mile is 4:52, then you'd probably be able to run consecutive 6-minute miles easier, right? But because this guy's best mile is 3:50, he can run 4:25 consecutive. So you're just trying to create reserves, I guess, as part of your GPP. You're trying to get your fitness level so high that everything else is easy at submaximal levels. Like the lifting thing, like I remember, did you ever hear that story? It was like a Fred Hatfield, Dr. Squat, like somebody challenged. Yeah, it was something like a reps at 425 or something like that. And I guess he had squatted over 1,000 pounds, and some bodybuilder guy said, hey, I just squat 425 all the time. So I'm going to challenge him to who can do more reps. And the guy did like 26 reps or something. And then Hatfield, somebody said, oh, he did 26. That's a lot, man, at 425. And Hatfield said, well, what's that a percentage of my max? Like 40%. So he proceeded to do it like 42 times or something. Like,
Yeah.
So just because his maximum strength was so high, you know, that submaximal was very easy for him. So I think that's kind of a consideration as well, as what is high intensity.
100%.
Yeah.
Who was the guy? Was it Tom Platz? I thought it was Tom Platz. So was it Tom Platz or Hatfield? I thought it was 10 minutes. Shows how things get blown.
Oh, I'm sure they've done those types of things. Yeah.
But I mean, listen, I mean, getting back to the high intensity, medium intensity, and the slow, steady state, I mean, there still is a real gray area on what high intensity is. It's like, should it be based on heart rate? Should it be based on what your output is? Or how are we really measuring output? Is it through wattage on specific pieces of equipment?
Yeah, I don't know. Should it? Yeah.
On a treadmill, like, I'm sorry, when you're running on pavement, what can you maintain max speed at? Fine, if you can maintain max speed, what can a runner maintain max speed at? 4, 5, 6 seconds? What is it? You would know better than anyone.
Oh, max speed is like, honestly, if you're talking pure max speed, it's 2 seconds.
Okay. So like some people say, oh, well, if you can't maintain max speed, then you're not doing high intensity. I'm like, well, that's bullshit.
I mean, I would assume you'd have to have classifications within each category of exercise. I don't know.
I mean, high intensity is high intensity. I mean, if I turn around and I go 100% at a mile, or 100% at a 400, or 100% at 100 meters, that is my highest intensity for that, that period of time. So that's another way of looking at it also.
Well, and there's differences between, like, it was interesting when we were in Vegas, there's a power lifter guy, can't remember the guy's name, but we were talking about submaximal, and I said, if I go at 90% of my top velocity or best time in a run, that's pretty easy. So I can have people work submaximally and be safe. But he was saying if I did 90% of my best lift, that would still kill me. That would still be really tough. So I think, and maybe 90% aerobically. So I think you do have your maximums, but your submaximums are graded differently, or, you know what I mean? Like if I said, go, you know, if I do 95% or 90% of your best lift, how many times can you do it? You know, what is that? 3-4 reps? I don't, you know,
probably around that.
Yeah. But if I said, I want you to run 90% of your best 40, and I want you to repeat that with whatever 3-minute breaks, you could probably do it pretty long.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
but you know what's ironic about it, all of this is every time you or I talk about doing something that we're not used to doing, you're always like, oh, you feel great doing it. So even when you brought up how you went and you did more of like a longer duration, more of a steady state, you were like, oh yeah, I'm sleeping better. I actually did something funny yesterday. I went in and I trained with my partner early morning, and we worked up to some pretty heavy dumbbell benching. And I think I got up to like 130s and felt great. Had a great workout, great warm up, left, went into the city, had a cancellation, did 20 minutes of steady state just to kind of get a little bit more of a sweat, and took a shower, got out. I'm training Jake Gyllenhaal, and him and I were doing some bench pressing, and he turned around after and was like, just let me do this. I feel like taking the bar and doing 50 reps. And I was like, I just looked at him and I laughed. I was like, okay, you feel like doing it, do it. Like, I couldn't tell you why you shouldn't. Like, he's not training to get stronger. He's training for GPP and just to feel good. So after he's like, can you do 100 reps? How many do you think you do with the bar? I'm like, no, listen, I'll stop at 100. Like I know I could do way more than that. Right. So I just sat there at the bar, and I just literally at this tempo, I put my feet up and I just started literally like a metronome, just sat there, and I didn't break tempo, and was just breathing. And out of nowhere, like I felt like an incredible amount of blood coming to my chest and shoulders and triceps, but it wasn't debilitating. And I racked it at 100, and I got up, and I swear to God, I don't know why, I felt so good. My body felt so good all day long. And I had this pump in my chest. It was the bar. It was an unloaded bar. And any achiness in my elbows were gone.
How'd you feel the next day?
Like today, I feel amazing. Like my body, I still, for some reason, I have this thickness and hardness going on in my chest. It sounds so ridiculous. But, you know, then it made me start thinking like, you know, there's a component of muscular endurance that, you know, a lot of us don't focus on. Like I break it down. Like there's really 5 components of fitness, right? There's, what is it? There's muscular strength, there's muscular endurance, there's cardiorespiratory endurance, there's body composition, and there's flexibility. Call it flexibility or mobility. Like that's what I was always kind of taught. Now someone can turn around and say, well, you left this out, left that out. I don't know. This is kind of how I always broke it down. Muscular endurance is almost something where in the weight room, I mean, besides, you know, CrossFitters, like you never really see people doing like real high capacity work. They're coming in, they're doing like 15s, 10s, 12s, 8s, 6s, strength athletes, doubles, ones, singles. But there's this, like, and I don't know why suddenly, why did my body feel so good doing that? You know what I did today? Like at the end of my workout, lower body workout, I did 100 body weight squats. I just did 100 body weight squats. And I was like, I'm like playing around with it now. I'm like, all right, I'm going to take another, like a one body weight thing or something really light that I would normally not do. And I'm just going to pump 100 reps at the end of the workout. Why? I just want to see what are the effects on me mentally and what are the effects on me physically. Why is it that none of my joints hurt today? Why is that suddenly all gone? Why does my body feel different? Why did I look a lot more vascular, a lot more different last night? Could it have been from that? Most people say, oh, it's bullshit. It's probably diet or it's probably something. Like, I don't know, dude. You know, like it's just weird how something just triggered a switch there. And then I started thinking about muscular endurance and how that's probably an area that, you know, maybe is not as focused on as much as all the other components that I focus on. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I was reading about this this therapy technique. I don't know if you've heard of it, Feldenkrais.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the guy, you know, interesting guy. He was like a physicist or something, but he was just talking about, and I think this goes back to what you're saying, like maybe there's like a vocabulary, a movement vocabulary, or a muscle action vocabulary, and we're either expressing ourselves as doing something heavy with a heavy load, or we're kind of walking around existing gravity. And he would have people do exercises very slow because, you know, like there are these neck exercises, and he has them do them like higher repetitions and very slow because we don't really do that. So maybe that's missing from our movement vocabulary, and what you're doing is a missing piece that we haven't considered. You know, maybe there's something to it.
Maybe in GPP, I mean, I think there's too much ownership taken on one specific block of training because people will find that that might be optimal for the areas that, like, so for someone trying to put on muscle, like, you know, they were always told, oh, anywhere from 6 to 12 reps, you know what I'm saying? But if they're most of the people in that range training GPP, like, why not do a block of training when you're doing incredibly high reps? And maybe it's 3 weeks. Maybe it's not more than that because you're just going to start getting too weak after that 3-4 week mark. Strength reserves are going to begin to diminish after that period of time.
Well, think about the whole early specialization in sports and how baseball injuries, basketball, like a lot of foot injuries, baseball, obviously upper body, other sports where they're just, hockey is going to be groin. And so you're just hammering these same intensities and these same muscles. And what you're saying is maybe there's got to be some gap filling of other areas.
Oh yeah, I think 100%. I just think what happens, like with anything else, people will get a little bit of bullshit research, or they'll hear from some coach that this is what's optimal for that area. And you know, when you're looking at optimization, like, what are you really measuring now? Like, is it a 0.1% better? Like, is that worth it for muscular stimulation when you could do something else and just completely feel and move better? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm starting to. It's just, there's something really ironic, and it's very basic. But anytime you or me or anyone else goes back to doing something that they haven't done in a while, they feel great from it. And it could be something so out of the ordinary.
Yeah, like Tai Chi is such a slow, it is like it's slow movements. And like, if you and I did that, we'd probably go nuts, right? Like, oh God, but maybe there's something to it from a therapeutic or like you said, a GPP point of view. from a muscular endurance postural point of view.
Maybe we should come up with a program and just call it the clusterfuck mishmash.
Let's do everything you have to do reps of 100.
Listen, my whole goal with training is, I want to feel good. I still want to have that spark in my head where I like to go in and I want to be strong and I want to feel good. And because I've done so many different templates in my life, and do I look any different from any of these templates? I mean, I've done 1,000 templates in my life. Like, can I recall one template where I got that much more muscular or that much more stronger? Yeah, maybe, but at the end of the day, it's like the variability is important for your mental. And it's also important, I believe, because once you start overstaying your welcome with a specific type of training, then I found that your body starts feeling like shit. Is that the same in sprinting? Like, like a sprinter, like take someone, Usain Bolt, like he just goes out and he's focusing on these short bursts. Is there ever any benefit for someone like that going out and running like a half a mile or a mile or just at like a jogger's pace?
I mean, I think so, because again, you're getting to that over specialization piece where if you keep hammering the same nail, either something's going to break or you're going to plateau and you're going to get worse. So I think there's a very specific kind of variability that he needs so that he doesn't, detrain his speed, but at the same time, he needs that variability. And as you know, being a good coach is like, okay, well, how much of that do we need? So I think that's the secret sauce, is figuring out how much of that variability you throw in there to get the desired effect, and then you get away from it and you throw it back in. And I mean, it's the same as any training you're doing right now. I mean, what's interesting for me is that you're 42 now? 40?
Yeah.
Yeah. So between 42 and 50, I think your training has to evolve to accommodate, again, the wear and tear factor, maybe your interest. Who knows, right? But that's been interesting for me. Like, I don't lift heavy as much anymore because I'm a little more concerned about my spinal, core, or my discs and my cartilage and my joints and all that. I'm being very careful about that. But and even from, like I said, the mental health anxiety, like the aerobic stuff seems to work better now than it did when I was younger.
The aerobic stuff just feels good.
Yeah.
There's something about going out and pushing yourself and kind of hitting that barrier of like, oh my God, am I going to make it or am I going to throw up? Or it's like, for some reason, there's just a good feeling that you receive off of that. Has my training changed in the last 20 years? Absolutely. I think my preparation has changed a lot. I think even, 15 years ago, where I would go in and do a warm up, I was doing that less for, because I felt like I needed. I was doing it more because I was like, oh wow, this is new stuff I'm learning, and I'm just going to implement this before my workouts. But at 42, I'm still setting my own PRs, and I'm still doing specific things for me that wow, I've never done before. I've never been in that good of a position. But I also noticed that, where in the past I never had to give any thought. When I was 22, I didn't have to give any thought to overloading my system with just doing too much. Like, I could go out and do a heavy lift, a run, and then take a yoga that night. Like, now I understand that if I'm doing that on a Monday and I'm lifting the next day and having a hockey game Tuesday night, there's a cost of doing business Wednesday, and my body's going to feel a little bit differently. So yeah, I think you get a little bit more strategic, and because listen, I want to train as much as I can. It really is. I don't want to take a minimalistic approach to my training. It's because I don't enjoy it. I enjoy, part of what makes me feel good in life is working out and exercising and being strong and looking a certain way. And yeah, that's part of the game for me. So how much can I do while allowing myself to move better and feel better? That's where the trickiness comes in.
Do you find you have difficulty, or it's a challenge to convince people that you work with, the clients, and who don't maybe want to push themselves, like whether it's getting their heart rate up, or do you find that people are a little? It's
so different because I have certain people, like I know Jake Gyllenhaal, I have to calm down with a lot of the cardio training because he's such an animal, and he just, he's someone that if I could if I told him to do high intensity interval training, whatever the hell that is anymore, every day, he would do it. But I've explained to him about different energy systems. And I've explained to him about recognizing stress levels in his lifestyle and his body. And, you know, he just got off an intense Broadway show. So we didn't do any HIIT training during that. We did none. We did medium intensity and we did more slow, steady state. And even a week after, I don't have him doing any HIIT training. After it ended, like we just, how's his body feeling? How's he resting? Because it's not suddenly like, oh, well, I'm done with this job. Let's just jump into it. Like you're still fried. You're still taxed. So something like that, I'm always trying to like pull the horse reins back. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I got other people I've worked with that are just lazy. And it's like, all right, man, getting you on the Airdyne bike for 5 sets of, you know, 10-second blasts and 50-second or getting your heart rate to go below 120. I mean, even that's a struggle because they don't like pushing that hard. But if I'm never going to have them do high intensity training, like, is it gonna, what, like, why? Like, why do I have to have them all do high intensity? Like, if they don't want to do it and they hate it, like, yeah, I want to push them past it a little bit, but I also want them to feel successful and I also want them to enjoy coming in. I mean, what do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to find everybody's, like you said, you know, everybody has their range and their tolerance. And I mean, even for me, like doing the longer runs, like I don't enjoy it during, but certainly I enjoy the effect of it after, like almost immediately after I finish doing it. Like, I feel like everything is opened up, you know? So, so I enjoy that part of it. And maybe that's what you just got to do is educate people on, you know, what the long-term benefit is of pushing yourself.
What's your training like now?
Probably doing like three or four kind of aerobic days, but then I'll layer in stuff too. So I'll lift like 2 times a week. I'll try to get something heavy. Then I'll try to do some sort of maybe another 2 times a week, something like where I'm running fast. So, you know, if I'm training 6 days a week, there's kind of some crossover on some of those things. If I do a lift in the morning, I might do a run in the afternoon. So, or in the evening. So
how's your body feel?
Pretty good. Honestly, I think I'm, you know, I don't have too many complaints. You know, but I mean, it's just, again, I'm doing, the sleep piece. I'm making sure I'm getting that in. I'm doing my stretching, you know, I have to do that. So there's all these things where I know I have to do it to kind of keep things humming along.
Right.
And I'm just trying to not do anything too crazy. Like I go out yesterday, threw the football with my son, and actually I'm not too bad. I didn't overdo it, but sometimes you got to be careful, right?
Right.
Age. So, I mean, we can just talk, you know, kind of classify this as like what intensity do you need to train at, or what's high intensity, or what? I just think people
I think there's also a recovery component to this conversation too.
Yeah, because we start with the sleep piece, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think this idea that sleep is kind of the canary in the coal mine. So that if there's a disruption in your sleep, it's not as easy as, well, I'm just not sleeping well. It's what did you do during the day? What did you do during the week? What stressors, what, you know, eustress versus distress are in your life, because both of those have an effect.
What I'm going to start getting to the point soon is recognizing, you know, what foods to disrupt sleep. Because, you know, someone like you, and I'm curious right now because you're actually a person better to do it than me, because I'm so volatile in my sleep quality. But you're up at 95 to 100%. I'm curious to see how you're going to sleep if you go have a shitty meal.
Well, that's another thing. I've really tried to clean things up since we talked last time. Like I'm, you know, I have tried to eliminate as much, you know, external sources of sugar or anything like that. So I'll have a coffee in the morning, black. That's it. That's the only caffeine I'll have.
Yeah.
In the morning. You know, and then just trying to keep everything pretty natural, like fruit, vegetables, and just cleaning things up, I think has made a difference too.
Sure. 100%. 100%. 100%.
But I mean, that's something we can, I mean, that should be another talk.
I think we should. I mean, there's a lot we can start covering on these topics. This isn't something where I feel like we're just done talking about. I think we kind of opened something up nice here. And I think we should keep kind of covering and assessing a lot of what we're finding. in a lot of like, you know, I think it's cool for us to keep coming back to our wearable and say, oh, wow, all right, I tried this week. This improved this substantially, and this didn't improve. And, you know, when I went and I did, one of my buddies and I went to a Russian bathhouse, and we went through like a serious amount of hot and cold contrast plunges. So we would go like through really hot sauna and we'd go into a freezing cold plunge, like 37 degrees. And we were in the cold plunge from like 3 to 4 minutes. And I left to go to a meeting, showered, and I literally was like, I was just like, I was a disaster. I was walking down the street and I was like, like tripping, and I was so relaxed, I almost couldn't keep it together.
Oh, okay. So were you exhausted from it too? Like tired?
What was weird was I was tired from it. And in that night, when I thought I was going to have the best night's sleep, both of our night's sleep was disrupted. And I was waking up at night, like in sweats, and like all the stuff was going on that I didn't really expect. So, you know, I'm not saying I'm going to stop doing what I did, but is it maybe I just did too much of it? You know, they did it for 2 hours.
That's almost like a traumatic event, almost like, right? Sounds pretty intense.
My sleep was like, I mean, on my fatigue, I was like a 2 out of 10. It was awful. And, but I was exhausted, but my sleep was affected, and I woke up sweating, like my body was hot. So I was
like, how about the next couple of nights after that? Did it settle down pretty?
It started coming back a little bit. It started coming.
Okay.
The night after that went to like a 4 out of 10, and like it like substantially increased, but I got up to a 9 out of 10 and it fell back down. So I want to live anywhere from 7, you know, out of 10 and up, or according to Whoop, it would be, you know, what is it? 90% or 80% or 85%. So it's got its ways of breaking it down, but it's really interesting stuff. What's interesting about it is it's not as simple as like, oh, put on a pair of blue light glasses and it's fixed.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's there's long-term trends you have to analyze. You can't just go like, I did this and 2 days later I'm feeling way better. It's, you know,
I gotta start back with meditation before bed. I think that if I spend 5 minutes stretching and another 5 minutes meditating, I might just try. I'm playing hockey tonight, so it's going to be, I might have to do that when I get home. It's just typically I shower and get right into bed because I don't have a lot of time.
Yeah. I mean, it's figuring out how much of each of those things will have the dosage piece is pretty interesting. Like, you know, is that enough? And probably it is. It's just the frequency of doing it consistently.
I got to get on it. All right. Well, let's continue this. I won't see you this Friday, but the following Friday. But thanks for doing this today. That was huge.
Yeah. No, that was.